The air itself felt like a scream held captive, a silent, suffocating pressure, guttural whispers like dry leaves skittering across a forgotten grave slithered from the darkness, a chilling, rhythmic, metallic scraping sound, slow and deliberate, echoed through the confined space. Then a sudden, impossible lunge from the shadows, a formless terror, as a raw, primal shriek tore through the silence. Alex Miller knew the weight of silence. He knew the gnawing ache of isolation. At 27, he was a ghost in the night, patrolling the empty halls of Viridian Corp, a sprawling monument to forgotten ambition. This night security gig was his penance, his sacrifice, a desperate bid to outrun student loan debt and build a future for his younger sister. He was a man of routines, a creature of habit, clinging to the predictable rhythm of his patrols. Yet, beneath the jaded exterior, a deep current of care flowed, a quiet determination to protect those he loved. He just needed to get through this. Viridian Corp loomed over downtown Cincinnati, a 15-story behemoth of pre-war architecture. Once a titan of industry, it now stood partially vacant, a skeletal structure undergoing sporadic, endless renovations. At night, it transformed into a mausoleum of echoes, its corridors stretching into an oppressive void. The ground floor security office was his sanctuary, a small island of light in a sea of darkness. Beyond it lay the vast empty lobby, a cavernous space where every footstep reverberated with unsettling clarity. The basement server room hummed with a low mechanical thrum, a constant unsettling pulse. Executive suites on the 14th floor held the ghosts of ambition, while the 7th floor housed abandoned archives, a forgotten repository of the past. His first weeks blurred into a monotonous cycle, patrols, door checks, the hypnotic flicker of security feeds. Mark Johnson, the outgoing day guard, offered casual warnings about the old building's quirks, a dismissive chuckle that did little to ease the growing unease. The profound loneliness of the night shift began to seep into Alex's bones, a cold, creeping dread. Then the subtle anomalies began. Faint scratching sounds like claws dragging across metal seemed to emanate from the ventilation system. Distant thuds, heavy and inexplicable, echoed from the upper floors. Sometimes barely audible whispers would drift across the intercom, too indistinct to decipher, yet undeniably present. The security feeds, his only window to the building's emptiness, started to glitch. Brief, inexplicable distortions, bursts of static, would ripple across specific camera views. The 7th and 14th floors seemed particularly prone to these digital spasms, as if something was trying to break through the signal. Small, innocuous objects began to move. A stapler, left precisely on the corner of a desk, would be found in the center of the room. His own coffee mug, placed carefully beside his monitor, would appear on a different shelf. These were minor shifts, easily dismissed, yet they chipped away at his sense of order, his carefully constructed routine. The disturbances escalated. Fleeting shadows, elongated and indistinct, began to dance at the edge of his peripheral vision. They darted through the long, empty corridors, vanishing before he could fully turn his head. He would blink, shake his head, and tell himself it was just fatigue, a trick of the light. His personal items, the few comforts he brought to his desolate post, were not immune. A framed photo of his younger sister, a beacon of warmth in the sterile office, would be found slightly askew, or even turned face down. It was a violation, a subtle invasion of his personal space designed to unsettle. Then came the cold. Sudden, localized drops in temperature would engulf him, a chilling pocket of air that seemed to suck the warmth from his very core. These icy patches were always accompanied by an undeniable sensation of being watched, a prickling awareness that raised the hairs on his neck. He would spin around, scanning the empty space, but find nothing. He began more thorough patrols, his flashlight beam cutting through the oppressive darkness. He tried to rationalize each event, attributing the noises to drafts, the building's age, or even the possibility of pranksters. But deep down, a colder, more unsettling explanation began to take root. He used the office computer, delving into the building's digital archives. He searched for its history, for any mention of its past, its secrets. He found vague references to a tragic incident decades ago, a hushed-up event that left more questions than answers. The isolation and lack of sleep began to warp his perception, blurring the lines between reality and hallucination. He questioned his own sanity, wondering if the night shift was slowly unraveling his mind. The seventh floor, with its abandoned archives, called to him. He found a hidden, unlocked section, a forgotten corner filled with dusty boxes and decaying files. The air here was thick with the scent of old paper and forgotten secrets. He began to sift through the brittle documents, his fingers tracing the faded ink of newspaper clippings and company memos. The truth, when it emerged, was far more horrifying than he could have imagined. The clippings detailed a series of disappearances, hushed up by the corporation, followed by a horrific industrial accident. A failed experimental project was mentioned repeatedly, a vague, ominous phrase that hinted at something far beyond human comprehension. The incident had occurred in the building's early days, a dark stain on its pristine facade. One name surfaced again and again: Dr. Evelyn Reed, a brilliant researcher, last seen on the 14th floor just before the accident. Her story was a tragic footnote, a life swallowed by the building's insatiable hunger. The entity, the source of his torment, was revealed to be her tormented, distorted remnant. Trapped and mutated by the experimental energy, Dr. Reed was no longer human. She was a grotesque echo, a spectral predator feeding on fear and isolation. Her motivation was unclear, perhaps to complete her unfinished work, or simply to escape the eternal torment of her existence. Her abilities were terrifying: telekinesis, moving objects with unseen force, psychological manipulation, whispering doubts and conjuring hallucinations, and physical distortion, manifesting as shifting shadows and elongated forms. The metallic scraping sound intensified, a grinding, tearing noise that vibrated through the floor. He was in the basement server room, the heart of the building's power, a place of immense isolation. The entity had lured him here, a spider drawing its prey into its web. He was cornered, the hum of the servers a mocking lullaby. The shadows coalesced, twisting and stretching into a grotesque, elongated figure. Distorted human features, barely recognizable, writhed within its formless mass. It was Dr. Reed, or what remained of her, a nightmare made manifest. The air grew heavy, thick with an oppressive dread. Alex fought back, not with strength, but with his wits. He knew the building, its layout, its vulnerabilities. He scrambled, desperate, trying to disrupt the entity's connection to the building's power grid, to sever its link to its work. Every move was a gamble, every breath a prayer. He faced a terrible choice: escape, flee this nightmare and leave the building to its horrors, or try to put the entity to rest, to free Dr. Reed from her eternal torment. The latter meant potential sacrifice, a final, desperate act. The metallic scraping grew deafening, a prelude to oblivion. He managed to banish it, or perhaps merely to escape its immediate grasp. The details were a blur of terror and adrenaline. He fled the building as dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight a searing balm on his raw nerves. The horrors of the night were left behind, but their imprint remained. Alex was forever changed. The physical and psychological trauma ran deep, a wound that would never fully heal. Sleep became a luxury, haunted by the whispers and the scraping. Paranoia became his constant companion, every shadow a potential threat, every silence a prelude to terror. The Viridian Court building still stands, its secrets largely intact, its dark heart beating in the silence. It waits, a patient predator, for the next unsuspecting soul to take the night shift, to become another victim in its endless, terrifying game.